let's get to it. As the recall effort against Governor Newsom comes closer to making to the ballot, what can we expect in the weeks and months to come? It's going to get interesting. Joining us now, Dr. Isaac Hale, political science lecturer at UC Davis. Dr. Hale, thanks so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so from here in the next couple of months, we've got to do the verifying of the signatures. But if that happens, things get kind of tricky from there, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So after the signatures get verified by county officials by April 29th, then the state has to verify that they've received the nearly 1.5 million necessary to trigger the recall. Mm-hmm. Once they've done that, they've got to actually schedule the thing.
Right.
So that's a big political question. It could happen this year. But it's also possible under state law that they could fold that election into the regularly scheduled primary next spring.
So that's the whole thing here. I think a lot of people are like, why are we doing this now if it could just eventually be folded in 2022 election? And especially when we talk about the costs here, so much money is spent on political campaigns. But let's just talk about the taxpayer cost. How much would this special election, if it's not folded into the next election, how much of our taxpayer money would go to that special election?
Well, the Newsom administration gave their best estimate a few days ago, and that was about $81 million.
$81 million. That is a lot of cash. So let's talk about as far as the governor making, finally kind of talking about this and addressing this. For a long time, he didn't. Now he's got a kind of a special committee to kind of fight back against all of this. What do you anticipate happening from here out?
I expect you're going to hear a lot more of what the governor's committee has already been saying, which is that this is a Republican effort and an effort, backlash against the pandemic, against the lockdown, and that it's an attack on liberal policies and Democratic California. The governor himself said this the other day.
We talked about this a little bit before, you and I wanted to kind of touch on this again because we just had an Emerson College poll that Nexstar did, our parent company, with this, and we're finding that a lot of voters, some of them may want the recall, but many of them won't. And so when it comes to the recall, this is a tricky thing. If we do have enough signatures, explain how hard it's going to be for the governor to be recalled and for that effort to really kind of take hold.
Yeah, so I mean, it's fundamentally a difficult thing to recall an incumbent governor. Yeah. Governor Newsom's approval rating is sitting at about 50-50 right now, and that is a far cry from where Governor Gray Davis's was in 2003. He is former Governor Davis's approval was sitting in the 20s when he got recalled, and Newsom is hovering around 50%. That's a much better place to be. Now, he doesn't have a ton of wiggle room. He can't afford to have another French Laundry type scandal. He can't afford to have his coalition fracture, but he's in a far better place than Governor Davis was.
And if they make that big hurdle to try and usurp him on the ballot, it's not like a majority vote like we've seen in others. This is what's really unique about a recall election. It's just who gets the most votes, right?
Yeah, it's the Wild West out there. So the way it works in a recall election, the way it worked back in 2003, is there are two questions that will appear on the ballot. Yeah. So one is, should Governor Newsom be recalled? And that's a simple yes or no. Yeah. And if it's, that could win, if yes won by got a majority of the votes, then the second question matters. Yeah. And the second question is, who should be governor of California? And you will see anyone and everyone running for that, except Governor Newsom, who can't appear on the second part of that ballot.
That is crazy how it happens. I remember, I think Governor Schwarzenegger at the time had 48% of the vote for his. Not over 50. He still became our governor. Dr. Hale, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Always great insight.
Thank you very much.